Hi, this is Riddick Big Daddy Ball, two-time former world heavyweight champion, and you're watching Cool True Sports.
True School Sports.
True School Sports.
There you go, champ. Thank you.
I'll astound your eyes when I get down to the nitty. This thing's moving damn slow. Chill for an hour, then grease them all and still walk through the corridors with my hands on my bills. I still pass crews that amuse me not. Can't distinguish the English when they freestyle and jock. Try to pass by, you stare me down cold. You try to find my soul, save your rhymes for the mind. Nigga, I'll break it down for your headpiece and give peace signs. And ride the shepherdese, carry on. Never do crime to all mankind. Make a line, feel the pain. I'm running out of time. The lies will get done. I never had a gun. I even you with trauma when you night bring the drama. Carry on, never do crime to all mankind. Make a line, feel the pain. I'm running out of time. The lies will get done. I never had a gun. I even you with trauma when you night bring the drama.
The heavyweight division is boxing's glamour division. Over the years, we've had many great heavyweight names like Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis, Jack Johnson, Rocky Marciano, and the list goes on and on. This is boxing's money division. This is boxing's most storied division. And today, we look at the current state of the heavyweight division. We look at who is the best heavyweight in the world, because there are a lot of debates going on in boxing about who is the best heavyweight in the world. You know, Tyson Fury's coming off of a massive win against Deontay Wilder in his rematch in what was a great historical performance. And he's the lineal champion. He's the undefeated lineal heavyweight champion of the world. He's dethroned two fighters who had 10 plus title defense streaks. But then you have the likes of Anthony Joshua, who has suffered a loss, has come back, become two-time champion, is the current unified champion of the world, has arguably the best body of work. We look at the heavyweight division, we look at just where these guys are at in their career, and we compare Anthony Joshua's 25th fight, you know, where he's at in the 25th fight, to where some of the other heavyweight elites were in their 25th fight. So, stay tuned.
Nice to be a boxer.
You know what the thing is, Lee? You asked me that question a minute ago. I'm not even messing about right now, and I know people are here, but I'm going to tell you about myself. Just don't ask me that question. If me and you ever do an interview again, don't bother asking me about that question because it's doing my head in. You're lucky I've got these gloves on.
Am I?
You're seriously lucky I've got these gloves because it's me off, these questions about am I too nice. You're in my domain now. You're in the lion's den with me. Ask me that question again if you think I'm too nice. You think I'm messing about. Ask me that question again. Because Andy, I spoke to you about this as well. About people asking me these silly questions about am I too nice. Does it look like I'm messing about you?
No, it doesn't look like.
Does it look like I'm messing about you?
No.
Have a word with him, because I'm not joking with this geezer, you know. Doing my head in, people thinking that I'm too nice.
So question 2?
Don't go into question 2 if we ain't finished question 1.
All right. So why are you too nice?
Don't ask me that question. I just told you, don't ask me that question.
Okay.
Get out of this ring. Get out of this ring. Doing my head in. Interview.
I don't know how to get out of the ring. I don't know what to do. I feel a bit like crying. You should go into act. That was pretty convincing. I thought I knew it was a joke. And then got to the point, I thought, oh, maybe I've done it. I've achieved career fame.
What's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, this video right here, we're going to be looking at the heavyweight division. We're going to be looking at just these claims, because right now in the boxing world, and particularly in the YouTube boxing community, there's a lot of, and I don't know why personally, but there's a lot of debate about who is the best heavyweight in the world. You know, many people are shouting for Tyson Fury as the best heavyweight in the world. I personally believe that he is the best heavyweight in the world, and it's not even close. But then sometimes when I say it's not even close, they say, well, wait a second, BT. There's this guy named Anthony Joshua, you know, from England. Unified champion, 23-1, 21 KOs. He just came off a masterclass performance in the rematch against Andy Ruiz. I think he might have something to say about that. So they say, BT, it's a lot closer than you think. So I decided to look at things contextually, you know, with Anthony Joshua, because he was slated to fight June 20th in London at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And obviously, that's been scrapped because of the coronavirus. But it was a 25th fight, and when he fights, more than likely in his 25th fight, he will be fighting Kubrat Pulev. So I decided to take a look at what Anthony Joshua was doing in his 25th fight, along with his body of work, and compare it to the others in the heavyweight division. So Anthony Joshua was slated to fight Kubrat Pulev June 20th at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the first defense of the unified titles, you know. That's what he planned to do. Now, when we take a look at Kubrat Pulev, we're talking about a fighter with really good amateur pedigree. We're talking about a fighter that's defeated the likes of Hughie Fury, Kevin Johnson, Samuel Peter, Derek Chisora. Only guy he's ever lost to is Vladimir Klitschko. You know, he's beaten Tony Thompson. He's beaten Alexander Ustinov. He's beaten Alexander Dimitrenko. So he has a good list of heavyweight names. I don't think he's any, a creme de la creme heavyweight, but he's definitely, you can say for sure, if you made a list of the best heavyweights after the champions, so aside, excluding not Wilder, because he's not a champion anymore, excluding Fury and Joshua, if you made a list of the top 5 non-champions in the division, I think he'd probably crack 5, because you'd have to say Dillian White, Wilder, probably throw in like a Luis Ortiz, and then he's based on his body of work. I think he's got a legitimate claim for that 5 spot. I think you could. So that's what Anthony Joshua was fighting, and for that to be his 25th fight, I think it's an amazing accomplishment. But just taking a look at Anthony Joshua's resume as it is, as it stands at this present moment, we're looking at wins over the likes of Andy Ruiz, Alexander Povetkin, Joseph Parker, Carlos Takam, Vladimir Klitschko, Eric Molina, Dominic Breazeale, Charles Martin, Dillian White, Kevin Johnson. He's got a good crop of names on his resume. And, with Anthony Joshua, I think right now as it stands, because there's been a lot of people, he's gotten a lot of criticism, in his career. A lot of criticism in his career. Some people say he's soft, which I think is very unfair, because he's shown many times in his career that he's the furthest thing from soft. He handled the loss to Ruiz like a true champion. Gave him his credit. Said he'll be back in the rematch. He came back and he won the rematch. So you can't say he was soft in that regard. He fought Vladimir Klitschko, who had been off the ring for a little bit after the Tyson Fury fight. Got dropped, in that fight. I believe it was the 5th round. And he got up off the canvas to stop him in a modern-day heavyweight classic. So you can't say Anthony Joshua is soft. You could say he's vulnerable. You could say he has technical deficiencies as a fighter, or maybe that his stamina should be called into question. But you can't call the guy soft, because, the fact of the matter is this guy turned pro in 2013. He's been a pro in half the time as Fury and Wilder and many other fighters in the division. And he's unified titles. He's sold out stadiums. He's made a fortune in boxing. He's done great for himself, and he's done British boxing proud by flying the flag high. And he was scheduled to fight Pulev in his 25th fight. And I think at this stage of his career, I know he's not necessarily a young guy in terms of his age. He's only 30 years old. But in terms of boxing, in terms of Anthony Joshua's actual boxing, he's relatively young. He's only boxed 103 rounds in his 24 fights. Because a lot of times he's folding these guys up and he's just straight up stopping them. That's what it is. And if we compare that to somebody like a Tyson Fury, right? Tyson Fury, just comparatively speaking, and we're not going by fights, we're going by rounds boxed, because you can be the same age but not physically be the same age in the ring, because of the fact that you take more punishment and you've had to go through more rounds. Tyson Fury has boxed 193 rounds over his 31 professional fights. So we're talking about, 90 rounds or so more, and that's a lot. That's a lot more mileage. Even though Tyson Fury's only a year older, he's boxed 90 rounds more. And when you factor in that he's been boxing longer, there's also more rounds of sparring in the gym that haven't been accounted for. So for Anthony Joshua to be so green in boxing terms, I'm speaking in boxing terms, and so young in boxing terms, not in terms of age, not in terms of that, for him to be so green and to be so young in boxing terms and accomplish what he's accomplished is nothing short of unbelievable. And I think he does have a legitimate claim of being the best heavyweight in the world. I don't agree with it, but people who say he is the best heavyweight in the world, I think you could say that. I think they have a legitimate claim. Obviously, we won't know where he's at in regards to that until he fights Tyson Fury for undisputed or fights for the undisputed title. But at bare minimum, at worst, Anthony Joshua number two. So you gotta really look at these things when it comes to Anthony Joshua.
Hey, this is Tyson Fury, aka the Gypsy King, the lineal heavyweight champion of the world. Wilder, you want to show up tomorrow, you little bitch, and not shit yourself like you've been doing for the last year or so. Don't want no part of the Gypsy King, do you? You're going to get smashed. Tomorrow, I start living in your head rent-free, you little bitch. See you there, don't be late. Hey, this is Tyson Fury. This is a special message from Deontay Wilder, the big dosser. He's going around saying he fights all the best heavyweights, but Dominic Brazil ain't no best heavyweight, and neither is Luis Ortiz. Dominic Brazil's average at best, and the other guy, Luis Ortiz, is average at best. 145 years old. Someone you already knocked out, you bum. You go around fighting the bestie, giving them bestie opportunities. You've only fought one good man in your career, and that's me, and I beat you. And everybody in the world knows that you lost to the Gypsy King. A half-massed Gypsy King. A Gypsy King that was out of the ring for 3 years. Still beat you. On 50%. You're getting busted next time I meet you. I'll have everything I've got on it. I beat you, dosser. I ain't afraid of you. I ain't bothered about you, bum. I wasn't bothered about you back then, and I definitely ain't bothered about you now. You big dosser. You're getting it. You big dosser. You know you lost. Your trainer knows you lost. Your manager, your promoter, your wife, your kids. They all know the Gypsy King betted you. Coming for your pussy.
All right, so we went through Joshua. He fought Pulev. He was scheduled to fight Pulev in his 25th fight in the pros, and he probably will fight Pulev in his 25th fight in the pros. Wilder fought Daniel McCreary, who turned pro as middleweight in 1998, and went up to heavyweight when he fought Wilder. You know, so those two guys fought in the 25th fight. Now this is why Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight in the world, and it's not even close. It's not even close, okay? And to the Joshua fans out there that disagree with me and say, oh, well, Joshua unified titles and he has the best body of work. Okay, that's great. God bless him, fair play to him. But if we're talking about who is the best, who beat the best fighters when they were at their best and beat them in such a fashion to where you had to say, yo, that guy's special, it's Tyson Fury. Now, who did Tyson Fury fight in his 25th fight? Joshua fought Pulev. Or he's supposed to fight Pulev. Wilder fought Daniel McCreary. And Tyson Fury in his 25th fight fought the great Vladimir Klitschko. Look at the difference. Pulev, okay, so we'll do it like this. McCreary way down here. Pulev right here. Klitschko way up here. That's who Fury fought. He fought Vladimir Klitschko in his 25th professional fight. He was coming off the heels of beating Christian Hammer early on that year, and you know. Tyson Fury, man, there was a lot of questions about him going into that fight. A lot. You know, I remember it really clearly. I actually remember being at a fight party in 2015 for Cotto Canelo, and an ad came out for that fight. And I remember everybody that was there who saw the ad, they said, oh, it's just going to be another fight for Klitschko. It'll just be another defense. This white guy has no chance. You know, that's everybody was saying. And to be fair, that was the general consensus from a lot of people at the time, that Tyson Fury didn't have much of a chance against Vladimir Klitschko because he was stiff, he was boring. You know, he really hadn't done anything in his career in the eyes of a lot of people. So a lot of people weren't giving him a chance, and he went into that fight as an underdog. You see what I'm saying? But when the fight started, or even before the fight started, in the build up to that fight, he had psychologically psyched Vladimir Klitschko out so badly. It was one of the best displays of mental warfare I've ever seen in boxing. You know, from the sauna story to Batman coming to the press conference, from him getting angry at Klitschko for calling him a clown and threatening to fight him, to serenading him at the public workout. I mean, he was pushing so many buttons in the build up to that fight that by the time the fight actually happened, Klitschko was so mentally flustered and confused that he just didn't know how to deal with Fury on the night. And when you factor in the old age, when you factor in that he's punching up to a taller heavyweight, which he's not used to, it created what we saw from Vladimir Klitschko, which was a fight where his movement, where his overall his game plan was offset. He didn't have anything for Tyson Fury. And was it the most entertaining heavyweight fight? Was it Bo Holyfield won? Was it David Tua versus Ika Biabuchi? No, it wasn't anything as great as those fights. It wasn't Cassius Clay versus Sonny Liston, but it was a great performance from Tyson Fury. It was a great performance, not an exciting performance necessarily, but a great performance, a necessary performance, a much needed performance. And he did what he had to do to get the win. And I've always found I find his career at this point so fascinating for Tyson Fury because, you know, with him beating Klitschko the way he beat him, you know, he beat Klitschko. He stayed on the outside, slipping and sliding, feinting, shoulder feints, foot feints, all kinds of different feints and herky-jerky moves to keep Klitschko at bay and gun-shy. And then 5 years later, in the next biggest fight of his career, in the Wilder rematch, you know, Wilder at the time, and I don't care what anybody wants to say now, but at the time, people were talking about Wilder being the hardest hitting heavyweight who ever lived. And I still think he is one of the hardest hitting heavyweights who ever lived. I still think you can't take away his punching power from him just because he got folded up by Tyson Fury. But he beat Klitschko in a manner where he was slipping and sliding, boxing him from the outside. You know? And then he does a complete 180 in the next biggest fight of his career, where he adopts a Kronk boxing gym style. You know, because Kronk fighters, generally speaking, are known. You know, all the great Kronk fighters of yesteryear, from your James Tonys to your Gerald McClellans to your Lennox Lewises to your Tommy Hearns to your Hilmer Kentys to your Frank Tates to your Ricky Womacks. They're all known for, you know, being complete fighters, complete aggressive fighters. What I mean when I say that is good jab, right hand, left hook. They have all three of those things. They have all three of those things, and they have them in spades, and they're forward, aggressive fighters. And Fury adopted that style. He wasn't worried about what Wilder was bringing to the table. He just knew he could fight in a manner where he could put pressure on him, and that's what we saw with Tyson Fury. We saw a good jab, a good left hook, and definitely a good right hand. And he adopted that Kronk style, and he folded up and destroyed, you know, the so-called hardest puncher in boxing history in Deontay Wilder. So in one big fight, he outboxes the third longest reigning heavyweight champion in the history of the sport, or second or third. I don't know if he's second or third, but he's up there, top three, just behind Joe Louis. And Vladimir Klitschko ends the title reign and saves the heavyweight division. Then he fights Deontay Wilder, you know, and he goes right to him, takes the power from him, you know. My good friend Stacey McKinley always quotes Joe Louis, because Joe Louis always said that he'll take the right hand and make you stick it in your back pocket, and that's what he did with Wilder. And once he did that, Wilder ran out of answers. So I mean, because if you use what I'm using right now for this video, because the topic is who do these guys fight in the 25th fight. We started with Joshua because his 25th fight's coming up soon, and I think 25 is a good number of fights to see where a guy's at in the professional ranks. Joshua's fighting Pulev, a good experienced fighter, a good top 10, you know, contender. Only lost to Vladimir Klitschko. You can't really say anything or criticize that opponent. You know, it's a good opponent. Wilder, on the other hand, fought a blown-up super middleweight in Damon McCreary, who became a heavyweight journeyman. And then Tyson Fury fought, you know, an all-time great heavyweight in Vladimir Klitschko at that stage of his career. So I'm just saying, man, look at who Fury fought at this stage of his career. It's not even close. You know, it's not even close. And the fact that he's got wins over Klitschko, Wilder, Chisora, twice. You know, Christian Hammer, who was an alright, you know, decent win at the time for him. Fury, to me, maybe the body of work doesn't have the depth. I mean, Otto Wallen, I think Otto Wallen was a good win. I think that win will look better for him as time goes on. Honestly, Steve Cunningham, you know, IBF Cruiserweight champion, gave him a good fight. You know, always a game fighter when he steps into that ring. Steve Cunningham. You know, his resume may lack the depth of an Anthony Joshua, but in terms of top end, elite, creme de la creme quality, the win against Klitschko and the win against Wilder, the rematch, are the holy grail right now of wins in the division. And it's not so much that he beat them, but it's the sensation that he beat them in. Because let's call a spade. Wilder doesn't have any elite upper echelon quality creme de la creme wins. He has good wins against, you know, high level contenders like Luis Ortiz, but not against somebody that you can say is genuinely an elite fighter like, you know, a Klitschko. You know what I'm saying? Joshua beat Joseph Parker, which was it looks great on paper, but the performance was it left a lot to be desired. You know, I thought Dillian White beat Parker better than Anthony Joshua. He's had lackluster performances in some of the big fights, even though he's won. So it's not just who Fury's beating, but how he's beating him and the ways he's beating him, the different ways he's beating him. He's showing himself to be not just a great heavyweight, but you can make the argument based on his wins in the big fights, because the big fights are what fighters are judged on. Based on who he beat, how he beat them, in the manner he beat them in, Tyson Fury is making a great case to potentially being the most complete heavyweight who ever lived. And I know for my boxing historians out there and people that don't like Tyson Fury for whatever the case may be, you might scoff at that, but name me a fighter. I mean, I can't think of many fighters who fought a dominant champion like Klitschko and outboxed him, and then fought an elite puncher at the level of a Wilder and took the fight to him and beat him up the way he did. You know, it's few and far between. It's kind of reminiscent of, like, you know, whether you like it or not, Muhammad Ali. And I'm not saying Fury's as great or better than Ali, but I'm saying it's reminiscent of that. And he's making a great, as his career progresses, he's making a great case, fight by fight, as to why he might be the most complete heavyweight who ever lived. So Tyson Fury fought Vladimir Klitschko in his 25th fight. He's the best heavyweight in the world, and we don't give a damn if you like it or not.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, Amanda, so you were saying like Deontay's like unorthodox. He's just like real unorthodox.
No, he know his shot. He know the shots that he gonna throw.
Yeah.
And he know his bread and butter. And he know it better than anybody else. So he confident that he gonna get his. He just, you know, I pat you right here, move here like this, etc. And you think his hand down, and you come up there, you know the way you do it. Yeah. Right, it don't make no difference. You hit people. I seen hit a guy on the forehead. And you know, usually you break your hand, you hit somebody on the forehead too hard. Like that. Now, he just, he know his tools. He know his tools. Confidence.
Yeah. Do you think he's like one of those fighters you can't really prepare for? Like, because of his style, or the way he is?
You know, when you new, don't nobody know you.
Yeah.
But they probably got people just studying his move and all that and stuff like that. But it's impossible to catch up with somebody who don't know what they're gonna do a lot of time. You know, so you know, he have to think he know what he do well. That the jab of 1-2, but don't nobody know when he gonna do it, but him, and which is the smartest thing in the world.
All right, so let's take a look at Deontay Wilder, because Deontay Wilder is somebody that, you know, on YouTube in particular, he's very, very popular. I mean, a lot of people on YouTube love Wilder because they always call me a hater and they come out to defend him. So Deontay Wilder, what can we say about Wilder? You know, we've said so much about Deontay Wilder in the past, and even now to this day. To this day! He only has one loss on paper in his career, and that came in the rematch with Tyson Fury. Many would say, and I would say myself, that it was the first time in Wilder's career where he truly fought a match-fit, A-level fighter in their prime, and he got folded up like a blue steel chair. So that, because of that, his credibility and his title reign, has been called into question, you know, because aside from the Fury fights, the fights that mattered the most in his career were both Luis Ortiz fights, and he won both of them by knockout. And once you get past that, you know, then you get to the Spilkas and the Staverns, you know, fighters that became champions or became title holders, not so much because they were the creme de la creme of the heavyweight division, but more so because of circumstance, because of, you know, circumstance and just being at the right place at the right time, which in boxing sometimes means more than being a good fighter, and that's just reality of it. So with that being said, and that being taken into account, because right now we're comparing where these guys were in their 25th fight. You know, Joshua was out here fighting Kubrat Pulev, an experienced, solid pro, you know, solid top 10 guy, probably one of the top 5 best heavyweights in the world outside, you know, the two champions in Joshua and Fury. And that's a great fight for the stage of his career when you consider how green he is in the professional ranks of boxing. Now, when we talk about Deontay Wilder, comparatively speaking, he's been pro longer than Anthony Joshua. He's had way more fights than Anthony Joshua. But he's boxed, you know, Wilder has boxed 150 rounds to Anthony Joshua's 104, 103, whatever that was. So he's boxed well over 40 rounds more than Joshua. So he's even a more experienced professional than Anthony Joshua. So that should tell you a lot about where Deontay Wilder, or where Anthony Joshua was at in his career, and it suggests that Joshua might even have some room to grow as a fighter, and that's a scary thing to think about. But we're comparing the 25th fight. Joshua fought Pulev in his 25th fight. Wilder has been crucified to no end here on YouTube for his resume or lack thereof, because many people, myself included, have stated that Deontay Wilder is in a witness protection program for boxing. He's fought so many no-hopers in his career. And in his 25th fight, because that's what this is about, in his 25th fight, Deontay Wilder, he fought a gentleman by the name of Damon McCreary. Now, I just got done telling you guys about, Anthony Joshua and the fact that he's fighting Pulev, a guy that's challenged for the world title, who only lost to Klitschko, has beaten the Derek Chisora of the world, who's a very, very good pro. Very good pro, comparatively speaking to the rest of the heavyweight division. There's not many people, whether you like it or not, no matter what you think about Pulev, there's not very many heavyweights in the world that can claim they're better than Pulev. Maybe 8, maybe 9, but not many. Not many. Wilder in his 25th fight fought a gentleman by the name of Damon McCreary. Now, you might be asking, who the hell is Damon McCreary? Well, Damon McCreary, he's a fighter coming to you live and direct, straight out of Detroit, Michigan. He's a fighter that has had an interesting career path, this Damon McCreary. He was a fighter that his last fight in his career was in 2017 against a guy named Junior Wright in Detroit. He got stopped by him. His pro career, Damon McCreary, finished off with a record of 15-7 with 11 KOs. He got stopped 6 times. Now, McCreary wasn't always a heavyweight. He's a 5'11" heavyweight, but he wasn't always a heavyweight. It's worth noting with McCreary that when he turned pro in 1998, he turned pro as a middleweight. He did not turn pro as anything close to heavyweight. So this is a guy that ate himself up to heavyweight. And this is the guy that Deontay Wilder fought in his 25th fight. Because Wilder came out the amateurs very green, very raw, very unpolished. Despite the fact that he won a bronze medal, Shelly Finkel padded his record and padded his confidence, really. That's what he was doing. He was padding his confidence. So he fought this guy, Damon McCreary. If you watch the fight, this is not the kind of fighter that you want to be fighting in your 25th fight. Or it's not a fighter that boxing fans would like to see a highly touted prospect fighting in their 25th fight if they're this great heavyweight. And that's who he fought. He fought Damon McCreary, a 5'11", butterball, pudgy heavyweight. And these I can't even classify that fight as a learning fight, because there's a difference between a learning fight and massaging a guy's confidence. And Shelly Finkel, in this case, what he was doing with Wilder was massaging his confidence. And at this stage, he should have been fighting guys that were more durable, that had more to offer than a Damon McCreary. Because I'm of the belief, if Wilder had fought a guy or fought more durable, game heavyweights at this stage of his career, and maybe learned how to punch to the body and maybe some of the more nuanced skills of boxing, that maybe he would have finished Tyson Fury in the 12th round of the first fight, and maybe we're having a different conversation. But I mean, you're comparing Wilder fighting, or Joshua fighting Pulev, and he hasn't even boxed. He's barely boxed over 100 rounds in the professional ranks of his career. As to where Wilder, he's in his 25th fight, because he was blasting through everybody. And even going into the Damon McCreary fight, because you got to look at these things contextually. You got to look at these things as they happened. If we look at the Damon McCreary fight, right, he was coming off wins against Kurtzson Manswell, 23-5. He fought Owen Beck at the Brawl at the Mall, 29-10. He was the Jamaica heavyweight champion. And before that, he fought a guy named Jesse Oltmans, 10-2 in Mexico, in Cancun. And then before that, he fought a guy named Marlon Hayes, 23-10 in St. Louis. So, and he won them all by stoppage. So he was coming into the fight with so many stoppage victories. He should have been stepped up. He should have really been stepped up. And then after that, the Kelvin Prices came, the Matthew Greers. Even after that, he got pretty soft heavyweight matchups. He got about three or four more soft matchups until he fought Sergey Lyakovic, which I would say is the first decent step up in his career. But you can just go from each fighter's 25th fight, Joshua, Fury, White, all these guys, and you can clearly see why certain guys are where they're at in their career, and why a guy like Wilder got found out in the Fury fight. So that's just my humble opinion on Wilder. But he fought Damon McCreary, his 25th fight, a middleweight, a butterball, and a guy that really really should be fighting a 25th fight. A guy that turned pro as middleweight, who ate himself up to heavyweight. Come on. So he lost. We know he's not the best heavyweight in the world, but I wanted to give you guys that for context.
White said he fucked Deontay Wilder's wife, didn't he? That's quite interesting, isn't it? Do you think that's true or not? You know, I don't know if that's true, you know. I think he was just saying that, you know, to try and, like, lure Deontay into fighting him. You know, and he had the world title. Because he was avoiding him on it, Deontay. You know, him and Al Heyman. They were trying their hardest to avoid Dillian White, weren't they? So I think Dillian White said he fucked Deontay's wife, you know, to try and lure him into fighting him. Yeah, I don't know how true that was, you know. You hear a few rumours like that in boxing, don't you? Like there was a...
So the best heavyweight, you know, in my humble opinion, and this is only my opinion, the best heavyweight in the division who doesn't have a title, and this includes Wilder, I think is Dillian White. I think Dillian White is the best non-heavyweight champion in the division right now, based on his body of work. Because listen, when we talk about Dillian White, we're talking about, you know, wins over a faded Marius Wack, a good, you know, contender in Oscar Rivas, who was coming off of a good win against Brian Jennings. You know, in the rematch against Chisora, you know, really folded him up, and Chisora went on to win some big fights after that. You know, beat Joseph Parker in more decisive fashion than Anthony Joshua. Outboxed Robert Helenius, who recently just stopped Adam Kaunaki, and that win's looking good all of a sudden for Dillian White. You know, beat Lucas Brown in the most devastating fashion possible. Beat Derek Chisora barely in the first fight. Dave Allen was whatever win to me, but you know, he's got a good, solid resume, and he's got better resumes than many champions in the division based on body of work. And you know, he fought Anthony Joshua for the British title early in his career. And Dillian White had him hurt. You know, Dillian White gave Anthony Joshua one of his toughest fights of his career. And that was the fight where Anthony Joshua really began to put himself on the map and really begin to look the part, you know, as a guy that can go on to not just be a title holder or a trinket holder, but be a champion. And Dillian White, since then, has proven to not be just a quality heavyweight, but I think he's world championship material. He is. I think he's world championship material. So recapping here, who did these guys fight in their 25th professional fight? Joshua fought, or was scheduled to fight Pulev, and he more than likely will whenever he fights again, because right now we have the coronavirus epidemic going on, so we don't know when boxing's going to resume, but Pulev looks to be his next fight. Okay, Deontay Wilder fought Damon McCreary in his 25th professional fight. You know, a guy that turned pro as a middleweight and became a butterball of a heavyweight. It's 5'11", you know. Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko and ended one of the longest heavyweight title reigns in boxing in his 25th fight. And Dillian White in his 25th fight, I actually would put who he beat and the way he beat him over Pulev when Joshua fights him, and over definitely Wilder for Damon McCreary. And that's Joseph Parker. He fought Joseph Parker coming off the heels of an Anthony Joshua loss. Joseph Parker, I think, you know, has a great case for being probably one of the top 5 best heavyweights in the division without a belt. This is the same Joseph Parker that's beaten the likes of Andy Ruiz in a close competitive fight to win the title vacantly. You know, when Fury vacated it. You know, he beat, you know, tough heavyweight journeyman Razvan Kajanu. He had a close fight with Huey Fury, which was very lackluster, but he got the win there. You know, beat Carlos Takam in a really tough fight early in his career. Beat heavyweight journeyman Daniel Mart. So he's got a decent resume, and on his night, you know, he doesn't have a lot. Like Joseph Parker's problem is that he doesn't really let his hands go. He's kind of like the New Zealand heavyweight version of Adrian Broner, because when he lets his hands go, I mean, the guy has some of the most blindingly quick and fluid combinations in the heavyweight division. And Dillian White fought this guy, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, if you go back and watch my videos from that time, this was a fight where I really questioned how good Dillian White was, because I thought he had been a great product of matchmaking by Eddie Hearn. So my pick going into the fight was actually Joseph Parker. I thought it was the perfect fight for Joseph Parker to rebound. You know, I knew he was fighting a good physical fighter in Dillian White, so I knew it was gonna be tough. I knew sometimes Parker in these fights lacks physicality. He's more like a classy boxer. You know, he's not really a guy that likes to get down and dirty in the trenches. He's more of a classy outside boxer with good hand speed. But I thought his talent, his skills, And ultimately, his speed, which, you know, if anybody knows, speed is power in boxing. I thought he would catch Dillian White in the middle to later rounds, and get him out of there. And, you know, it was a tough fight for Joseph Parker. He was out-muscled. He got dropped. I believe he had a hematoma as well. So he was gun-shy because of these reasons. And, you know, he did drop Dillian White in the 12th round. It was a great heavyweight fight, but Dillian White was victorious. And I actually think Dillian White turned in a better performance than Anthony Joshua. I know he got dropped in the 12th round, but it's heavyweight boxing, you know, and his performance to me was cleaner. I think he even boxed him cleaner because Joshua, even though he won that fight against Parker, he didn't necessarily command the distance from the outside. Yeah, he was landing jabs and they were decent shots, but let's call a spade a spade. A big reason why I won that fight was because the referee wouldn't allow Parker to work on the inside. And I just think overall, when you compare the performances against Parker, Dillian White's was the superior of the two. So when you factor that in, I would say if we're just going by 25th fight, regardless of what Joshua does against Pulev, his win is better than what Joshua will do against Pulev, and against, you know, because you got to class Parker higher than Pulev. He's been a champion. He beat Andy Ruiz. He's beat Carlos Takam. He's a better fighter than Kubrat Pulev. Dillian White in his 25th fight has a better win than Joshua, has a better win than Wilder, and in terms of body of work, he's got a better body of work than Wilder. So, I mean, you got to put Dillian White up there. We're talking about a guy that you could classify as the third best heavyweight in the world in an era where right now I think we're going through like a kind of a heavyweight renaissance, if you will, a golden age. And, you know, he's world championship material. Anybody who's been really following his career knows that he's world championship material. Whether or not he wins a world title remains to be seen, because I don't think he'd win it against Fury if they ever got in the ring and fought. I don't think he's winning that belt against Fury. I don't think he'll beat Tyson Fury. But if he fought AJ in a rematch, I think that'd be a very dangerous fight for AJ. I think I might actually go for Dillian White to upset Anthony Joshua, because he's really improved a lot since they fought for the British title. But I really can't see Eddie Hearn making the rematch. So, you know, it is what it is. But Dillian White, he beat Joseph Parker in the 25th fight. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. And this is the same Dillian White who, if we look at his career, comparatively speaking to the other guys at heavyweight, you know, he's boxed 155 rounds. So he's boxed more rounds than AJ. Besides a couple more fights than AJ, but he's boxed roughly 50 more rounds than AJ. He's boxed more rounds than Wilder by about 10, and he's boxed about 40 less rounds than Fury. So, not in terms of age, but because he's the same age as he's the same age as Wilder. He's about a year older than Joshua, but we're not going off that. We're going off of rounds boxed. Comparatively speaking, Dillian White, between Fury, Wilder, Joshua, he's the second most experienced heavyweight. He's the second most experienced heavyweight in terms of rounds boxed between the four. I know he didn't have the big amateur pedigree. I know he came from like kickboxing, I believe. So maybe his learning curve was a lot more steep. But in terms of professional in-ring experience, only Tyson Fury has more experience than him. So, you know, that goes for a lot, and it makes what Anthony Joshua is doing in the professional ranks that much more impressive. You know, because he hasn't even touched 110 rounds boxed yet. He's only boxed 104 rounds, and the opposition he's fought has been absolutely stupendous in the pros for a guy at that stage. You know, so Dillian White, you got to put some respect in his name, and you know, he's definitely someone to look at in the heavyweight division and admire and respect. So what could we conclude from what we learned today? You know, we're looking at the 25th fight. We started with Anthony Joshua because his 25th fight is coming up against Pulev whenever it happens. 25, you know, is the 25th fight in a professional fighter's career is always a good, I think checkpoint as to see where they're at, whether they're contenders or pretenders. You know, Joshua fought. Well, he's scheduled to fight Pulev. Wilder fought a blown up Dan McCurry, who's a middleweight, who turned pro as a middleweight. You know, Tyson Fury ended one of the longest title reigns of all time in the heavyweight division in beating the great Vladimir Klitschko. And Dillian White beat Joseph Parker in more impressive fashion than Anthony Joshua did when he fought him. So if we're going to use this criteria, and we're going to use the criteria of rounds boxed, because Tyson Fury has more rounds than all these guys. He's got more rounds than all these guys. He's boxed longer than all of them in terms of, you know, when he started boxing as a young man. And, you know, being that Tyson Fury is 6'9", can move like a light heavyweight, super middleweight, can box in the back foot like a bootleg Caucasian Muhammad Ali, but then walk you down like a Detroit Krong gym fighter. He's making a great case for being the most complete heavyweight fighter who ever lived. And, you know, based on the top level quality of his wins in the heavyweight division and the manner and the level of the performances he's turning in, there's no way objectively you can say, based on looking at everything contextually, that he's not the best heavyweight in the world. He's the best heavyweight in the world by a country mile. And if Anthony Joshua wants to hold that title, he's got to beat him. And to be honest with you, Tyson Fury he doesn't have a title or a trinket or a sanctioning body belt, but he has the belt. The linealship of the heavyweight division that dates back all the way in history, going back to the likes of James L. Sullivan. He's the man who beat the man, right? The same title that the greats in boxing held, like Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis and George Foreman and Floyd Patterson. He has that. His name is connected to those guys forever, no matter what. And that counts for a lot more than just some paper trinket that Anthony Joshua has. Which, by the way, he got in the first place because Tyson Fury vacated the belts and had mental health issues. So, just saying, that's my opinion on the matter. You know, you guys let me know yours in the comments down below. I'd love to see what your opinions and perspectives are. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just giving Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT. We're at the Davy Powell, and you're watching True School Sports.